Whoa, didn't see you there, Cleop.
I'm here, Chef. You ready?
Let's get started.
You unlock the door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You've just crossed over into the Midnight Zone.
First step. Preheat your oven to 675.
Preheating oven to 675. You sure? That seems awful high.
The only thing awful is your cat's breath.
Uh-oh, Cleop. Looks like this oven is toast.
Toast? How to prepare toast. To begin, slather on butter.
Why would we need butter in the oven?
Because we are making toast.
But Cleop,
Trust me, I am an expert system. How is everything now? Butter makes everything better.
the oven is still smoking.
To stop something from smoking, add water.
Are you sure, Cleop? Oh no, Cleop. Now there's a fire.
Fire will give our dish a nice flambe.
We're not trying to flambe. There's a real blaze in the kitchen.
Well then, do you have any marshmallows? Roasted marshmallows are a classic example of a nostalgic American.
Artificial intelligence is already here, and it's improving every day. Your task today is to build an expert system that can automatically answer questions about a specific subject, like cooking, and to beta test your expert system with potential users to evaluate the effectiveness of this form of artificial intelligence. Help make the world a more intelligent place.
The first thing we're going to do is contrast between experts and expert systems. So expert systems, as you can tell, are named after experts, right? It's any kind of computer-based system, here's your definition, right, that is designed to mimic, I'll put it over here, we'll get to this picture in a second. It's designed to mimic the intelligence and function of an expert. By the way, I think mimicking is one of those weird words where I think there's a K in it. That's weird, but anyway. There's a K, yeah. Wow.
Just mimic by itself.
Mimic by itself just is M-I-M-I-C. And then,
Oh, good.
who knows, okay. Maybe because when you take away the K, it looks like mim-icing. Like icing on the cake. And anyway, okay. So now, just contrast this to some of the simple things we were looking at before with spreadsheets, okay? You don't necessarily have to have any experts involved at all when you're trying to, say, have a spreadsheet, decision support system that works out someone's BMI and then tells them, okay, what's their fitness level. That doesn't really require an expert. We could all do that, right? Whereas this is, the idea of an expert is someone who has had specialized training, okay? And crucially, years, probably decades of experience. They've been doing something a long time. They're really, really good at making decisions and making them quickly and making them accurately in a particular area. All right? So this kind of system, decision support system, is all about trying to take all of that and distill it down into some computer-based system. Okay? Now, the way we're going to contrast between experts and expert systems is to think about their advantages expert systems over experts, and then think about their disadvantages, or in other words, ways that experts, the human ones, are still superior to expert systems. Okay. Now, I've got a bunch of pictures to help you try and remember these points that I'm going to go through, because I got quite a few. I'm going to mainly dwell on the advantages. I haven't found any pictures for the disadvantages. Maybe you can do me a favor and search up some of those. Okay, so let's go through these in order. Advantages first of expert systems over their human counterparts. Okay, number one. This is my picture for. Yeah, accuracy is a tricky one. Okay, we'll deal with accuracy in a minute. I think you can argue that an expert system versus an expert might be more accurate, might be less. What I was really trying to get at with this, and maybe you can tell me if you get a better picture, is about consistency. Okay. Okay. So here's the benefit of an expert system, a computer-based thing, right? Assuming it has all the logic and all the knowledge programmed into it. If it meets the same situation, okay, this expert system, because it's a computer, and all it's doing is following rules and logic, okay, it's going to make the same decision again and again and again, all right? Now, later on we'll look at how that's a disadvantage, but can you see how that is an advantage, all right? For instance, have you ever been frustrated when you get an exam back or something like that, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I lost marks for this, well, no big deal, because I made this particular error, and then you look over at your friend, and they made exactly the same error. Their working looks identical, but they didn't lose any marks. What's up with that? That's not fair, is it, right? So consistency is about the computer's ability to always be following its understanding and its knowledge and its rules for how it makes decisions in always the same way in every situation. Okay? So that's a plus. Just human error, you know, we often say when a marker is tired or when someone is having a bad day or something like that, then consistency can often go out the window, right? So humans and their subjectivity can be a problem. So number one, consistency. Number two, any takers? Any takers?
Morals.
Elephants and morals? What are elephants? Elephants are famous for memory.
Oh.
You've got the memory of it.
Because you're killing elephants.
That was the wow, nice work. Okay, I didn't think of that. Anyway, okay. So what do I mean here? Where they say, you know, wow, you got memory like an elephant. I suppose the opposite would be a goldfish. What advantages does you can tell me this, right? Why does an expert system have a memory advantage over an expert? Thank you for stating the definition of an expert system. Okay, so it's computer-based. So what? What does that have to do with memory? Yeah, Leah?
So every single process that was done previously was
Yeah, that's right. Like, I mean, they say the working memory of a human being is 5 objects, 5 items, plus or minus 2. Okay, so if you're pretty good, you can get up to 7 things. And if you're not so great, sort of do 3 things, and then the 4th one you're like, I can't remember, okay? So that's the limitation of our short-term memory. Our long-term memory is the same. I don't know what your memory is like from, say, 10 years ago, when you were like 5, 6 years old. What kinds of things do you remember from back then? I only remember very, very few things, mostly the really traumatic things, right? And the really things I really enjoyed. The rest of it is just gone, okay? Which is quite astonishing, because you talk to a 5 or 6 year old, like they know what's going on. Like they can speak language, they can read and so on, but we forget. Okay, so short-term and long-term memory, computers have this tremendous advantage, okay? That they've got everything, it's all equally accessible to them, right? They never lose it due to memory loss. Okay, so there's a second advantage. Third advantage. The third advantage is Zachary Quinto. Now, what do you reckon? He's dressed up as, he's playing Spock in Star Trek, okay? And Spock is famous for, does anyone know? Live long and prosper, I know. The thing his characteristic that he's most famous for is logic. Alright? Logic. So, if you've watched the movies or you know the stories, there's sort of a big contrast between Spock and his counterpart, the main character of the series, who is Captain Kirk, the Captain Dude. Captain Kirk! Okay. James Tiberius Kirk. Anyway, Captain Kirk is sort of a bit fly off the handle, loose cannon. He's like, I know the logical thing to do, but what feels right, you know? He'll do things in that kind of way. Whereas Spock, he's like, well, look, these are the facts. this is what we should do, this is the most appropriate way we should go. Doesn't matter how you feel, you should do this, okay? So with an expert system, logic is very clear. Now this is important. If people are making decisions and you want to justify, okay, we ought to spend this amount of money and investing on this, okay? If you're a business, you want to be able to say, okay, well, is that worth doing? And why is it worth doing? You want the reasons, okay? Now, if you're like Captain Kirk, you'll be like, because I felt like buying, that amount of stock because, that day, I don't know, it just feels right or whatever, okay? Now that may be true, it may be valid even, but it provides no explanation, right? As opposed to when you go into an expert system, all of the rules and the conditions and the understanding that went into making a decision and making a choice, it's all very clear. It's all laid out there, okay, because it was programmed in. So logic in an expert system, very clear. You can know why it made certain decisions, okay, as opposed to, let's think about, say, a referee. A referee in a sport is generally an expert, you hope, right? So sometimes a ref makes a decision and you're like, why did they do that? What was the exact logic behind it? And they're like, oh, well, I kind of felt like, I don't know, right? Whereas the computer's going to say, look, I measured this, I saw that, these are my observations, and here's the logic underneath my decision. Okay? So, now, okay, I couldn't think of a picture for this. So, I will forgive you if you have no idea what this refers to, but hopefully I can justify it. This is about persistence. Persistence. Am I up to persistence? No, wait, sorry. No, that's wrong. Persistence is another one. This is diligence. This is what I asked you for. And yeah, anyway. Okay, diligence. Perfect example of where an expert in an expert system. Anyway. So diligence, what I mean by that is, when we say someone is a diligent person, what do we mean? What kind of quality is that?
They never give up.
No, that's persistence. When they never give up. Or perseverance, if you like. Diligence, I think, is about attention to detail. Hence the magnifying glass, right? Attention to detail. So here's what a good expert will do this, right? They'll know the important details in a situation, right? And in trying to make a choice, they'll zoom in on those details. And if it's a good expert, they'll always get all the important ones all the time, and so they'll make a good decision, okay? But, two things. Sometimes an expert will forget little details because they're human. Humans make errors, right? Another way of thinking about that, thinking back to the clinical decision support system, right? One of the most important jobs of doctors is to diagnose, okay? Just to try and work out what's going on here. Now, diligence comes into play for a doctor because there's a series of questions that they're going to want to ask to try and determine, okay, what are your symptoms? What's a likely kind of diagnosis? What's sort of predictable for your condition, that kind of thing. Now, as humans, right, even after years and years of training, suppose you've got a series of like maybe 10 to 15 questions you ask someone, and on that basis, you make a diagnosis. Well, what if you forget a couple, right? And without that information, you make an incorrect or a not broad enough diagnosis, okay? Just because you weren't diligent enough, right? And that's sort of a human problem. Now, expert systems, by contrast, they're always going to look at every single detail, even the trivial ones, and they're always going to ask every single question, even the trivial ones, okay? So diligence, attention to detail, right? Never going to miss a little, thing is a really helpful thing that you get from computer-based systems. All right, let's get going. Okay, now this is the one I think I wanted to call persistence. Persistence. Now, I don't mean persistence as in perseverance. I mean persistence as in something is always there. Like 7-Eleven, right? So one of the great things about an expert system that an expert doesn't have is that you can access them all the time. I suppose you could call this accessibility. Okay? Now this is like, computer-based systems do this all the time, right? For instance, if unless you live close to like a 24-hour Kmart, which is weird. I don't understand 24-hour Kmarts, but anyway, in the middle of the night, I need to go buy some track pants. I don't know. Unless you live near one of those, you generally can't go and buy anything you want at any time during the day because people have to go to sleep and have weekends and stuff like that, right? But Amazon never sleeps. Amazon is like a 7-Eleven up in the sky, and you get anything, right? So persistence. It's always there. The expert system is always there. Never needs to take a break. Okay? Never needs to have a nap. Never needs to go on holidays. Never needs to eat, apart from, electricity and stuff, which we can supply, all the time. It's always accessible, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay, now, this next one. Okay. have a look at this picture. What is it? What's he? This is this guy here, the standing guy, is a chess master, and what's he doing? If you can see closely, he's walking around a sort of a square of tables, and it looks to me like there's at least 7 or 8 games going on at once, and there's probably more outside the frame that we can't see. And if you've ever seen this before, it's quite thrilling to watch. He's just walking from board to board, and he's making a move. And he goes to the next board, and he looks at it, and then he makes a move. And in all likelihood, depending on how good a master he is, he will probably win all of those games. Maybe 1 or 2 he might lose. Okay. Now, what's this about? This is about availability, right? Namely, this chess master, as good as he is only available to play 1 game at a time. He maintains the illusion of playing multiple games at the same time. But really, if you freeze him in time, he's only dealing with 1 game, and he's just doing them in sequence. Okay. However, an expert system, right? How is it different? How is the expertise and knowledge of the expert system available in a different way than it is to the chess master? Well, in a true way, multiple users can access the expert system simultaneously and get responses from it immediately, right? There's no kind of, wait, hold on, the teacher's busy right now with someone else, you can't ask them questions because they're fully engaged and you can't actually interrupt into the conversation and get meaningful help out of them. Expert systems, not true. Okay? Alright, one last advantage, okay? Now, this guy, I just found him. I don't remember his name, so I'm going to get it for you. This man is Jiromon Kimura. How's that? My year 10, year 8 Japanese. Success. Okay. Now, Mr. Kimura is the oldest man in the world at the moment. Or oldest man. Probably the oldest woman might be a bit older, because I think women generally are a bit more, they last a bit longer. So it says he's a former postman. Good on him. He's 115 years and, well, at the time of writing this, he was 258 days old. Which was in January, I think. Hold on, have a look. January. So if he's still alive, he might be 116. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Yeah, happy guy. So, oldest man in the world. Now, I think like whatever the Guinness World Record must be 121, 122, something like that. Okay. So you've got a fixed age limit, really, on all of the experts in the world. Okay, and to be honest, most people don't really get past that. It's sort of like, woohoo, if I get past 100, like let alone 115, 116. Okay. So therefore, what's the advantage of the expert system over a human expert? Right. Okay. Now we feel this really keenly because, not just is it that, experts will eventually pass away because they're human beings, but also they will not just pass away, they'll leave organizations. So we're losing, over the last few years and in the next few years to come, our school is losing heaps of expert teachers. A lot in my department. I mean, they're all over the place, right? But this is just what happens. People retire. They're only going to teach for like 45 years max, okay? And that's not that long when you think about how many students need all the expertise of these people, right? So an expert system, right? If you could condense all of the knowledge and wisdom and experience of a human being into a computer system, you'd be able to access it forever. That would be great, wouldn't it? Okay. Okay, let me have it. What did you come up with? Expert systems over experts. What do you lose? What kind of problems do you end up having? Yeah. Emotionless. Okay. Give me an example why that's important. Because I think we said before that the emotionlessness led to consistency, right? It's always doing the same thing, which can be a plus. So why can it be a negative? Can you give me an example? Okay, so when these decisions affect people, Okay, yeah, that there can be problems that come in there if a system is not sensitive to those kinds of issues. Can you give me an actual concrete example? Yeah.
Like an ASL, if someone got tackled the time before and it was a really bad tackle where you didn't report anything, the next time you got tackled again.
Okay, yeah, all right. So there's a sort of awareness that humans have of human beings, how they feel and how they've been affected by a situation, which not just affects each individual decision, but also how they relate to each other. All right, good. I think that's fine. Okay. Can someone give me a totally separate issue, problem, weakness, disadvantage? Okay, so I'm trying to think about. That's true. So we're talking about the hardware limitations of the system. I'm trying to steer away from the general ones, right? Because we can always say things like you need electricity and you need all these kinds of things, which are going to apply to every piece of technology, and we can list them off. That's fine. But can we be more specific about how it affects decisions? Okay. Did anyone have one that's a little more related? Up the back. Anyone? Any takers? Okay, all right, so the job thing, the employment situation, I'm not going to put that under here, okay, for two reasons. Even though it's actually valid, it's a very important issue to get, okay. Employment, as you saw, you may remember when we did multimedia, right? It's always been a two-edged sword with technology because you destroy jobs and simultaneously you create them, right? So depending on what kind of technology, sometimes you end up gaining more jobs than you lose, or vice versa, okay? However, the real reason I'm not including it under here is that I'm trying to get at the way the decision support system functions and does its job. Like, how does it, not the social impacts outside. I'm like, well, okay, in this situation, what is better and what is worse? Does that make sense? Okay, now just keep my eye on the time. Roll call's going to come soon, so I'm just going to zip through. That's okay. I've got 4 reasons. Okay, so number 1. It can be dumb. Here's what I mean by that, okay? Excuse me. Common sense and intuition, right, are characteristically human sort of qualities, right? You're like, well, look, this obviously can't be true, okay? They clearly can't mean that. This wouldn't make any sense. Now, for a computer, that kind of thing is actually very difficult to program. Common sense, right? So when you say dumb, right? Computers make completely ridiculous decisions. Just think of the last time GPS told you, okay, if you want to get from A to B, the best way to do it is go some crazy other way, okay, and then you'll land there half an hour later, okay? It's just following the rules that it knows to provide you with assistance in making your decision. And it doesn't see the common sense of, well, just because there's no, part on the map that shows you can go from here to here directly, it doesn't mean you can't, right? So common sense is something that is very difficult to program into a system. Secondly, this is the sort of the flip side of the consistency thing, right? Experts, one of the great things about them is that often they are marked by creativity, right? They can come up with a new kind of solution for an old problem or meet a new problem that they've never met before, and through all of their accumulated wisdom and experience, they'd be like, oh, okay, I can work out what to do here. Now, an expert system, by contrast, usually is marked by the fact that it'll keep doing the same thing every time. Very predictable, right? This is one of the challenges in producing a system that could beat a chess master. Right? Because if you play game after game after game, it'll keep on doing very similar things if you provide it with the same inputs. Okay? Now that's great for consistency. It's bad if what you need is actually something novel, something new, something creative. Okay? Alright. Thirdly, data integrity. Now what's data integrity? Do you remember? It has to do with reliability, right? It includes 2 things. Number 1, accuracy. Okay, the data that you have has to be right. And number 2, do you remember what was the difference? What's the distinguishing thing between accuracy and integrity? Yeah, that's still part of accuracy. Yeah.
It can be reliable.
Yeah, we mentioned that, reliability. I think I heard it. Yeah, you've got to have everything. Okay, so the difference between integrity and accuracy is not just is it right what you've got, but you've got to have the whole picture. Okay, so the way you remember it is in court people say, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? That's data integrity. Now, why is that a problem for expert systems? Okay, well, the pool of knowledge that an expert system is getting at, right? It's going to be fixed. Okay, it needs to be updated manually. So a crucial feature about an expert system is that of itself, it doesn't learn. Okay? So data integrity is a big problem for that because the world that we live in is constantly changing, right? So if it's going to be updated manually by some set of programmers and some other experts in the domain who actually know their stuff and they see how the situation is changing, then data integrity is going to go out the window very quickly. Okay? Not only will things change in the situation, okay, but also there will be new things discovered which the expert system doesn't know. Okay? Whereas humans, learning is part of what makes us human, right? So an expert system, very important. This is a big distinction between this and the next kind of level, artificial neural networks. We classify both of these as artificial intelligence. But expert systems, they don't learn, they don't change unless you do it yourself. Whereas an artificial neural network, the cool thing about it is it learns on its own. We'll get to that later. Okay, one last reason. One last disadvantage. It has to do, again, with this not learning thing, okay? You program a rule in to your expert system, okay, and it learns to make these decisions. But what if the decisions turn out really bad, okay? You make this kind of choice again and again and again, and it's obvious that, you get very, very poor outcomes, okay? If it's going to be consistent, like an expert system is, it's going to keep on doing it again and again and again, right? It won't respond to its stimuli, okay? When it makes a decision and it turns out badly, it's not going to change like a human would, okay? How many times do you have to press something, you get zapped, and you're like, okay, I'm going to stop doing that now, right? Whereas the expert system is just going to keep on going after a particular line of action, a particular series of logic, even if it turns out badly. I suppose you could call it unresponsive.
Hello everyone, my name is Garima. My presentation topic is on expert system. So what is expert system? Expert system is a system, or we can say it is a software which gives us expert advice without human interference. For example, spelling checker software, in which, like, whenever we type anything on computer or on our mobile screen, anything wrong word, then it gives a suggestion that you have typed it wrong. So what it does is, see, mobile or computer doesn't have their own brain. So how do they work these kind of tasks? There is expert system embedded into these mobiles or computers. See, what it does is, whenever user type anything wrong, any word, it compares that word into the data with the word which is there into its database. Whenever the word is wrong, then it gives suggestion to the user that you have typed it wrong and this is the right word. So next example is of NetBeans software. In NetBeans software, whenever we write any code and there is something wrong in that code, it tells us that there is something wrong in the code at this line, and it also gives a suggestion that these are the solution. You can replace that code with this right solution. So how it does is same, because there is an expert system embedded into this. Next is the doctor's example. In foreign countries, people generally do not go every time to the doctor whenever they are facing any problem. They just ask to the expert system that I am facing these problems, and that expert system gives advice that tells the patient that you can take these medicines. So how we can believe to that expert system? Obviously we can believe because so many highly experienced doctors and scientists put their knowledge into its database. So next is how it works. First is, I am taking example of spelling checker. So how it works is, there is no expert user which gives query to user interface. User interface, for example, we have typed any word on our mobile screen. Query is, we have typed any word. So we have typed it on the user interface. That word goes to inference engine. Inference engine, it takes input from the user and it observes it. And there is a knowledge base in the inference engine. What is knowledge base is? Knowledge base has all the knowledge from the expert. Expert put all his knowledge into the knowledge base, which is in the inference engine. Inference engine takes it combines the word entered by the user with the word which is there in the database. And from where it comes in the database, it comes from the, like for example, Oxford Dictionary. All the words